Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to IAIS Islamic Finance Talk Series. Today, we are very delighted to have with us Professor Dr. Saadiah Mohamad, who is currently the Honorary Professor of Economics at the Faculty of Business and Management, University Technology Mara, UiTM. Indeed, today, she will be discussing on sense and sustainability, Islamic finance for a more humanistic economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Islamic finance globally has continued to record impressive performance with last year's growth at 11.4%. However, due to both the pandemic and oil price uncertainty, it is projected to record low to mid-single-digit development in 2020 until 2021. How do we make sense of chaos and uncertainty surrounding the economy? This talk argues that the pandemic provides an opportunity for Islamic finance transformative growth in at least two broad areas: climate change and environment, and the role of Islamic finance in the social space, both within the global sustainability agenda. The talk also explores a growing area of behavioral economics and how it can move Islamic finance beyond the narrow technicalities of Sharia compliance to promote a more humanistic economy that is sustainable and socially just. After the presentation or lecture, we call it, by Professor Saadiah, we will follow with Q&A. Viewers out there, you can post your questions at the comment at your Facebook. We are having this Facebook Live, of course. Inshallah, we will entertain your question later. Without further ado, I would like to pass over the mic to Prof. Saadiah. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Associate Professor Dr. Azam Adil. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, greetings from Kuala Lumpur. I'm hoping that we have some international viewers. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you, Dr. Azam, thank you, IAIS, for the honor of being a guest speaker at this institute. I have, of course, been following, have been a student, have been a participant for many of the sessions held here, maybe over the past 2 decades. How old are you? Two decades now? I have enjoyed and benefited from the scholars and the big names that you have invited. So it is really an honor for me to be here as guest speaker. You have the screen now, and I'd like to begin my presentation with this rather romantic, beautiful jacaranda tree that this is by the Kotubia Mosque, which reminds me of my first trip to Morocco in 2017. Of course, Morocco is an exotic place, and I've always wanted to visit Morocco, and now especially, with the pandemic and the lockdowns, we cannot travel, so we can only have the memories of those travels. But why was this trip important for me? And this reminds me again of the motivation and a startling fact that I discovered when I was visiting a research fellow at the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies. And the startling fact was about this one. Do we know what is the world's oldest university? And this was not at Azhar, like a lot of people seem to think, not even Oxford or Cambridge. It is University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco, and founded as a mosque by an Arab woman in 859. So it was startling to me because, one, it was the fact that the world's oldest university is in a Muslim country, and it was founded by a woman. And the story of Fatima al-Fihri is really intriguing. Yeah? She was an Arab woman who founded the oldest existing, continually operating and first degree awarding educational institution in the world. And this is not really public knowledge. You know, when I ask my students, people might say Al-Azhar, yeah? And another interesting fact was that she founded it and financed it using her inherited wealth that she got from her father and her husband. So as a young woman, her husband died, and she used all the wealth for this. And she's a very pious woman. She started, the construction started in Ramadan, and she fasted almost throughout the building of the mosque, which also became the first degree awarding education institute in the world. And now, more than 1,000 years, we can see the power and impact of Waqf. The surrounding is the Medina, they call it the where the business, the commercial, yeah, the fascinating Medina, or where all the shops and the commercial surrounding this university. And it has received notable, students who graduated, famous names like, one of them is Ibn Khaldun. Yeah? Ibn Khaldun, a great Muslim scholar and a notable alumnus of Al-Qarawiyun, and this is what he wrote. It was as though she had awakened the resolve of the kings after her. This is a favor that He, Allah, gives to whom He wills amongst His righteous servants, if He wants for the Ummah progression and prestige, and awakens from among them men and women with a noble conscience and lofty emotions, driving them to do the best of deeds. And indeed, she didn't have the university just for the women. It was a lot of men, and great scholars came out from the university, and including those Christians who became leaders and popes. Yeah, so it was not just for the Muslims. Now, what do we have? We have a world of different realities. I'm going to post some of the not so romantic, I began with some romantic image, but now we are back to the realities of the world, some of which are different from the reality that we own, that we have every day. Yeah, one is the increasing number of displaced people in the world. And now let's meet Hamza. Yeah, this is a short video.
Hamza, Mosul, Iraq. This is my story. I live in many refugee camps in Greece with my dad. My mom and sisters are still in Iraq. My dad and I are trying to get to Germany, and then we will send for my mom and my sister. We are here because just want a better life. In my country, ISIS were killing us. They killed many of our friends. My dad is everything to me. He takes care of me, feeds me, and plays with me. But I miss my mom sometimes. When we came from Iraq, we walked very far. We came by bus, taxi, and then a boat, and then a train. We slept anywhere on the way. Now we have been here waiting for 3 months, waiting for the border to open so we can have a better life. Every night I pray that tomorrow we can go, but nothing happens. I will keep praying every night.
What is if Hamza is your child? Do we know how many refugees in the world? At least 7.9 million people have been forced to flee their homes, and 40% are children. Nearly 2.6 million are refugees. Half of them are below the age of 18. And 4.2 million people are stateless. Yeah? These are people denied nationality, basic rights like education, healthcare, employment, and freedom of movement. And they're not so far away. Some of them are here in Malaysia, in Sabah, for example. Next, we have also the issue of inequality. Yeah? Inequality is a growing challenge in the world. Meet Johnny Miller. He has caused quite a stir with his aerial images of divided communities in South Africa, Kenya, and Mexico in his much acclaimed project. This is called the Unequal Scenes Project. If you could have the video again. Do you have the video? Okay, it's okay. You could watch that. This is very interesting, where Johnny Miller actually take a drone picture, and you can just search in the YouTube of what inequality looks like. Yeah, and there's some inequality, some uncomfortable truth here. In Thailand, the richest 1% controls 58% of the country's wealth. In Indonesia, the 4 richest men have more wealth than the poorest 100 million people, and 50% of the country's wealth is in the hands of the top 1%. And in Vietnam, 210 of the country's super rich earn more than enough in a year to lift 3.2 million people out of poverty. And the country's richest man earns more in a day than the poorest person earns in 10 years. And in Malaysia, while only 0.6 of its 31 million people are living under the poverty line, 34% of the country's indigenous people and 7% of children in urban low-cost housing projects live in poverty. Now, the government recently revised the poverty line, and the 0.4% to 2019, which is lowest in the world, which is unbelievable. It now stands at 5.6%. And poverty and inequality in Southeast Asia before COVID. Poverty has been reduced significantly, and quality of life has improved for a vast number of Southeast Asians, 625 million residents. Now, gross domestic product has reached 2.4 trillion US dollars, and is still growing at an average of 5%. That's before COVID, yeah. And regional trade has grown into 10 billion US dollars in 1967 to 2.3 trillion in 2015. But the rapid growth, however, has some undesirable consequences, including rising disparity, inequality, and malnutrition. And this is the challenge that, as a region, we need to face. But this is not just a regional ASEAN problem. This is a global problem. Yeah, the growing gap between rich and poor is undermining the fight against poverty, damaging our economies, and tearing our societies apart. Yet inequality is not inevitable. It is a political choice. Yeah, these are some of the facts. Scary facts. Globally, the world's richest 1% have more than twice as much wealth as 6.9 billion people. That's almost 90% of the population of the world. Yeah, and almost half of humanity is living on less than $5.50 a day. The super rich avoid as much as 30% of their tax. Yeah, liability. And today, 258 million children, that is 1 out of every 5, will not be allowed to go to school. Every day, 10,000 people died because they lack access to affordable health care. I mean, it doesn't make sense, is it? I mean, the world has so much, the rich people are living in such sinful lifestyle with so much wealth. And some of them, I mean, undoubtedly, some of these are philanthropists. They're not all rich people are unscrupulous, yeah. But they continue to get richer because of the system, yeah. Now we can measure inequality using Gini coefficient, yeah. The worse, the closer to 100, the worse it is, yeah. The Gini coefficient is a commonly used measurement of inequality. Of course, there are a lot of measures, yeah, and we have to be careful in interpreting this, yeah. And a Gini coefficient of 0 expresses perfect equality, while a Gini coefficient of 1 or 100% express maximum inequality. And we see South Africa has the highest inequality, and that's why I wanted to show the video just now, but you can have a look at it. And then China and USA, as they grow rapidly, they also show increasing inequality. And these are the figures. Malaysia has shown improved inequality, it gets down. And then Sweden and Norway, the Scandinavian countries, are some of the best in terms of very low inequality. These are common in Southeast Asia. I'm not telling, it could be Indonesia, it could be Malaysia, yeah. Now, the pandemic has revealed pre-existing poverty and inequality. I mean, it's not as if this comes overnight, yeah. But COVID has impacted and produced very sad and consequences, and the world as a whole as well. There's been increasing poverty, and of course, even though we say that COVID doesn't differentiate between white or black, but the reality is that the poor people are more affected, and they are more exposed to the risks of COVID because of the nature of their work, their places. I mean, people who are homeless, people who don't have homes. How can you stay home if you don't have a home? Yeah. And in Southeast Asia, the ASEAN countries, the sub-region has not been very successful in reducing inequalities. And this is a report, yeah, with the SDGs. For example, the worsening goal number 2, zero hunger, food security, and improved nutrition and sustainable agriculture, we have gone worse. And inequality has widened. It's set back to achieve goal number 10, which is reduce inequality within among countries. Yeah. And as for Malaysia, yeah, despite reduction in official income inequality, the absolute earnings gap has increased. Yeah. So in other words, relative poverty has increased. And while T20 has increased from 9,000 to 16,000, and the B40, even though it's a lot more in terms of percentage, it is 100% increase from 1,000 to 2,000. But if you can see the absolute gap, yeah, the difference in terms of the T20 and the B40, from 1,000 and the other bracket is 9,000. So there's a difference of 8,000. But now the difference is 16,000 minus 2,000, which is 14,000. So the absolute gap has increased. Yeah. And you see the savings also, those below 2,000 per month spent almost entirely, 95%. So with very small, and some of them, of course, have no savings at all. And families earning 15,000 and above spend only 45% of their income on consumption. So even though we have some of the lowest percentage in the world in terms of poverty, relative poverty is a concern. And so Khazanah Research Institute has produced the latest report, Welfare in Malaysia Across 3 Decades. And even though they conclude that while the narrative of progress over 3 decades is generally positive, with significant improvements in average incomes, poverty, and inequality, we must remain critical in our discussion of how we will move forward. And I urge you to read the report. And of course, there are challenges. And this is a very balanced report. We want to know what are the challenges that is facing Malaysia. Some statistics. We have also inequality between states, the rich states and the poor states. And we can also have Gini coefficient by states. We have GDP per capita. Of course, the nominal GDP and GDP per capita. And inequality is not really just a problem for the poor states. And it's interesting here where we see Kelantan having the lowest GDP and Kuala Lumpur as the highest GDP per capita. But in terms of the Gini coefficient, I don't have the statistics here. But in terms of the Gini coefficient, Kuala Lumpur and Kelantan also has the highest, in other words, the highest inequality. So being rich doesn't mean that inequality is good, or being rich or poor. So the point is, it's not just income generation at the macro level, GDP per capita, the average measurement. But you also need to look at how that income is distributed and pockets, That's what I said about different realities, that we need to be considered. And income is, of course, only one dimension. Poverty is multidimensional. We have to look at housing, we have to look at where they live, whether they go to school, access to quality education, So the implications of pandemic is that economic inequality give rise to living in different realities. Impact from pandemic is also different to different groups of people, Now, the other problem is environmental degradation and climate change, I mean, we have all this in the name of economic growth. The plastic planet. Gosh, I mean, researching for this presentation, these are some of the things that, where is this? The mountain of plastic, And plastic pollution is not just an oceans issue, that can suffocate the animals in the sea, It's a climate issue and human health issue. So coming back to COVID-19, what are the spiritual signs? Everything has limits. There are consequences when limits are transgressed. Human power, knowledge, and intelligence is limited. And the ultimate power and knowledge resides with the Almighty God. That probably is a conclusion for those who believe in God. And mischief and natural destruction is an outcome of what man's hands have brought. And this is illustrated very well in the Quran, Surah Ar-Rum. verse 41. And I take this translation from my favorite author who has done the message of the Quran, Muhammad Asad. Since they have become oblivious of God, corruption has appeared on land and the sea as an outcome of what men's hands have brought. And so he will let them taste the evil of some of their doing so that they might return to the right path. And I'd like to read a bit about his notes in this translation of the ayah. And he says that corruption is not just corruption, as you know, this is facade, this is mischief, yeah? The growing corruption and destruction of our natural environment. And he was writing this. This was first published in 1960. He wrote it much earlier. Yeah. This is an outcome of man's hands that is self-destructive because utterly the materialistic and inventiveness and frenzied activity which now threatens mankind with previously unimaginable ecological disasters and unbridled pollution of land, air, and water through industrial and urban waste, a progressive poisoning of plant and marine life, all manner of genetic malformations. And to all this may be added the rapid deterioration and decomposition of man's social life, the all-round increase in sexual perversion, crime and violence, with perhaps nuclear annihilation as the ultimate stage, all of which is the last resort or an outcome of man's oblivion of God, and hence of all moral values, and their suspension by their belief that material progress is the only thing that matters. I mean, it's amazing that Muhammad Asad wrote this much earlier, few decades earlier. Yeah. Now, and it's interesting also that as I watched the last session by Professor Osman Bakar and Yang Mulia Dr. Tengku Azman, and I don't know whether it was from them, but someone we raised about this global repentance. Yeah, and I got this verse from Azumar, yeah, verse 53. Say, O you servants of mine who have transgressed against yourselves, despair not of God's mercy. Behold, God forgives all sins, for verily he alone is much forgiving, a dispenser of grace. So I think we need that global repentance of correcting the wrongs of man. And where is Islamic finance in all this? Yeah. These are some of the statistics, the trends in global Islamic finance, rapid growth, yeah, and Malaysia is leading for many years. We are the most complete and most comprehensive Islamic finance market that covers banking, wealth management, insurance, yeah. Now, the background to the problem, despite rapid growth in Islamic finance, more recent data indicates the beginning of declining trend in the growth rate of Islamic banks. And the industry is often criticized as creating only minimal positive social and environmental impact. And so this is how I started research on Islamic social finance when I, as a visiting research fellow at the Assoc Center for Islamic Studies, my research was on how Islamic finance can expand its universe to get involved into innovative social solutions, yeah, go back, dig from our tradition, and also to look at other disciplines and conventional and alternative economic models, yeah, because there's a need to realign the focus beyond Sharia compliance and targeting towards comprehensive value creation and value-based activities in ensuring sustainable business practices and long-term sustainable growth. In other words, what is the role of Islamic finance in terms of the sustainability agenda? Yeah. So Islamic finance should embrace responsible finance and notion of social justice. Yeah. Probably it has done it has contributed to responsible finance because of the way we structure, reducing speculation and tying to the real economy. Yeah, the way we structure our products and transparency. Yeah, so we very much like to feel that Islamic finance is part of ethical finance. But what about the notion of social justice? Has Islamic finance touch the area of social justice? How do we answer to all those issues that I raised in the beginning of my talk? So there is a need to assess the contribution of Islamic finance beyond profit to companies and growth to the economy. Responsibility. If it is to see itself as responsible finance, it has to deal with issues of ethical market behavior, access to funding and the economy's resource allocation, and that even it has contributed. I mean, I am an advocate of Islamic finance, and I've seen a lot of contribution in terms of financial inclusion. The fact that it has opened up all these Islamic banks that allow the rakyat, the people, to actually come into the mainstream finance, because in a lot of Muslim countries, when they do research, part of the reasons why they don't want to go into banking to be part of the system is because it's riba, it's haram. So having Islamic banks, of course, does produce a solution for Muslims. And in many non-majority Muslim countries like France or UK and even the US, they have problems because these are not available because of the limitation of the legal system. Yeah, but Islamic finance can be abused. I mean, when you issue sukuk, even though it may pass the legality, but it could be misused. How is that money raised being used for? Yeah, and has it ever? Not ever. I know, and as I'm going into this, some of the initiatives that is done by Islamic finance, but we need to have social impact measurement. Yeah, so that we can assess how much is the contribution of the Islamic finance in the social space. So this is my other, the three things I want to raise in this lecture, that of sustainability, Islamic finance, and a more humanistic economy. So an analysis of economic development has to go beyond GDP growth and GDP per capita. It has to look at how income and wealth is distributed. It has to look at other dimensions of welfare. Yeah, it has to look at the progress, the process of development to allow for equal opportunities and access. More importantly, it has to review the very concept and philosophy of economic development. For what purpose and for who is economic development and growth? And I'd like again to bring up something that I got from Professor Osman Bakar and Dr. Tengku Azman when they mentioned about systems view versus reductionist view. And this I thought aptly raise or point something that I believe, and I like to appeal to the Islamic finance community to move beyond. Probably, I could say we are guilty of being very exclusive and reductionist, yeah, in our approach. And I know that in some schools and universities, they want a very shortcut, success. And so they want to go focus on finance, Islamic finance. And much of what is in the syllabus is very much actually, I think, legal. You're a legal person. Very much legal. And I have attempted to put more of philosophy and the systems view through, for example, economics discipline, where economics discipline could provide that systems view. And we need to see finance as part of this systems integrated view, yeah? And to take Professor Osman Bakar, a civilizational approach. What is the purpose of economic development? Is to produce civilization. And this is a more Maqasid Sharia, a purposeful, mission, yeah? Rather than look at, of course, the way of doing is important, but to again use Professor Osman Bakar's words, is the way of knowing, yeah, that is important. So we want to go into a dynamic, interdependent, and evolving, yet consistent with ethical moral views. And this is the approach that can open up so much more opportunities, because after Islamic banking and after opening up an account and make it more accessible to people, what else? Yeah, and that could explain the decline in the growth of Islamic finance, unless we go into a bigger perspective. And also to quote from Professor Mohamed, he's also a big person in Islamic finance community, and he comes up with his latest book, focusing on Islamic moral economy. So coming back to, as economists, we want to go into a bigger picture, yeah? Economics and finance should be embedded into norms and values of society through locating ethical economic relationship across each system, so that morality would be articulated beyond impersonal market environments, which a lot of places we could have, Islamic finance with very much market environment, devoid of almost, yeah, values, because we go to, seminars and conferences when the academics are not there. So a lot of the discussion is very much commercial. There's Maqasid or essentialization of human well-being in economic and financial activities take place by motivating economic forces for economic and human development, which constitutes a base for the articulation of economic and financial choices to be linked to their consequences beyond intentionalism. And this I thought is a bit of a critique of the approach lately that people use of Maqasid Sharia. We talk a lot about the Maqasid, the objectives of it. And to some extent, Islamic economics have not really taken off the ground. And in fact, it is taken over by Islamic finance, because this is where the money comes in. But for Islamic economics, we find that that's lacking in actual practical ways to implement it. Yeah. So I would like to see the efforts that, for example, from the Forum Ekonomi Manusiawi, which is the NGO that we have just established, and our mission for a more humanistic economy. We'd like to feel that we are humble enough to try and learn from all the good things that we have so far. And then the weaknesses and the lessons from the capitalist economy. But a lot of alternative economic models have come out. You hear about the circular economy, the donut economy, the social solidarity economy, and of course from the Islamic economics itself. So we'd like to feel that we want to have the values from a faith-based model and discipline, that of Islamic economics, but also to incorporate that not just with purpose, but with also ways on how we use knowledge and latest technology to affect, to come up with policies that can be applied, and it results in good consequences. And one of the framework that we have already is the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, we are all familiar with this. And so how can the Islamic finance community try to do more to align to the SDGs? How much has been done in this space? Yeah. So Islamic finance has got to be responsible finance. There needs to be contribution beyond companies and growth of the economy. Yeah. Interestingly, IRTI, Islamic Development Bank, and I think this is pushed by researchers and academics that form part of the global Islamic finance community. because whenever we write papers, these economic issues and global problems, social justice, inequality, poverty. So the social space, a revival of waqf and sadaqah and zakat have been taken up by researchers a lot. And so the INTI in 2014 has started its first Islamic social finance report. And they have I urge you to read the report. So the Islamic social finance sector comprises the traditional Islamic institutions based on philanthropy, zakat, sadaqah, and awqaf, and those based on cooperation, qard, and kafala, and the contemporary Islamic microfinance. And I'm also pleased that I'm also involved as part of the Khadijah Waqaf National Foundation that would like to be one of the players to revive and to mobilize waqf, yeah. And by the way, the Jacaranda trees actually form part of the forthcoming book, Give to Enrich, which is going to be published by KIF. Now, this is one of the points that I'd like to put forward, and that is when we talk about Islamic finance, it has to include Islamic social finance. Why? For three reasons. This will extend the sector scale, yeah, because of the potential of zakat estimated to be US 1 trillion per year. But the value of endowment, which includes things like Taj Mahal, you know, and a lot of our, like the University of Al-Qarawiyyin, this is waqaf. So if we were to calculate all that, this makes Islamic finance huge, yeah? Because at the moment, for all the talks that we talk about Islamic finance, it's only about 2.5 trillion, which is about 1% of the total financial market in the world. But if we add to it the Islamic social finance, waqf assets is going to be much bigger. And it is far more inclusive. So I know I'm involved supervising PhD research, and we want to see the impact of Islamic finance. We want to look into financial inclusion. But if we don't have data on the social Islamic finance, this tends to underestimate the ability of Islamic finance to be more inclusive. Yeah, and in Egypt, for example, we have the share of Islamic banking at only 9%. But if you ask people, Muslims reported engaged in zakat, this is 70%. Yeah, and so therefore it is more inclusive in terms of participation and also in terms of people who benefit from it. And number three is that it embodies key values, Islamic economics, you know, those universal noble values of generosity and concern for others. So whereas Islamic finance in the Islamic banks may not have this, but at the social Islamic finance, you embody the very values of an Islamic economy. Next, I will talk about what are some of the initiatives already, yeah, that Islamic finance is doing in the social space, not just Islamic social finance, but also say in the sukuk, and to align with the sustainability agenda, the SDGs. We have, for example, the green sukuk, which is a new and innovative financial product that can be used around the world for climate-friendly investments. And green sukuk contributes to SDG, and it helps to close the gap between the demand and supply of infrastructure funds. I mean, there's this massive demand for infrastructure in Asia, in Africa, and the participation of sovereigns and Islamic development banks, and also international multilateral agencies like UNDP. And I think initiatives now are being done, the UNDP and the governmental level, yeah, the sovereigns. Malaysia launched the world's first green sukuk. We are so blessed. We have a lot of these world's first, yeah, including the world's first green sukuk, and I think there's involvement of UiTM there, yeah. And also, this is also another area, Islamic finance and impact investing. Impact investing can play a central role in the recovery. UNDP's Global Islamic Finance and Impact Investing platform, launched in 2015 in partnership with the Islamic Development Bank, brings global impact investing expertise to Islamic finance. So the collaboration works. You know, we should push that. And this is, by the way, the SDG number 17, which is partnership for goals. Yeah, we have the goals, but if you don't partner with people, then it is going to be less effective. And the other developments in SRI, we have Khazanah National, the Sukuk Ihsan. I think we are second in the world after the first vaccine Sukuk, which is considered as SRI or even social Sukuk. And then we have the sustainability bonds or sustainability Sukuk. We have the HSBC, Amanah Malaysia ATAM, and the ADRA Solar, Sinar Berhad bond. And now, what has been done amid this pandemic? In June 2020, the Islamic Development Bank raised 1.5 billion in their first ever sustainability sukuk designed to aid the recovery from COVID-19 in member countries. And in June 2020, Indonesia issued a 2.5 billion wakala global sukuk, and they do this in 3 tranches. And that includes a 759 million green sukuk dedicated to sustainable development. And the principal aim of the sukuk is to support the government's coronavirus program. And Indonesia, of course, have interesting initiatives with the work they're ahead of other countries in terms of work initiative. And interestingly, because they partner with UNDP, their zakat also, the business, and Malaysia has also issued a sukuk prihatin on September 2020. September 22nd, 2020, and the proceeds is supposed to be used as a stimulus measure to help micro enterprises, improving broadband coverage in schools, and funding research in infectious diseases. And some of it is retail, so is distributed to retail sector, and this is an important element also, that when you structure sukuk, if you want the people to be involved, you could have it in smaller denominations so that they can partake, they can participate in this initiative, and therefore brings greater awareness of the issue of sustainability to the masses. Now, what else can we do? Of course, zakat can be an important component of national and NGO emergency support programs. Zakat donors support both the poor and the economically insecure, an area of increased need in the pandemic. Now, individual philanthropy, of course. I mean, we see such good deed, around, to help the frontliners, to help this people. And I know of, and I also, alhamdulillah, contribute to some of these efforts. This is individual philanthropy. I know of a PhD student in University of Malaysia, Sabah, and he has communicated with me how he has gone to help, the stateless people or very poor people in rural Sabah. But for the government and the sovereigns, we can do a lot more. Partnership with the multilateral agencies. For example, Basnas Indonesia, the National Zakat Collection Agency, they have partnered with UNDP. And this is where in Malaysia, when we talk about Islamic social finance, the zakat and the waqf, I think it is time for state governments, the religious councils, to embrace the SDG number 17, partnership for goals, because there's so much that we can do. And Islamic finance community, I know I've been to a lot of these for the past 2 decades, nampak macam saya tua tengok dah. And say in the last 10 years, there's very participation of the state level people. We have a lot of bankers and Sharia scholars and the academics. Yeah? So I think it is time that the state government, the local authorities, to actually participate in this discourse of Islamic finance, to bring Islamic social finance to greater heights, to its full potential. Yeah. And some of the medium-term response, the financing of equipment, vehicles, and other sources of livelihood, aligning the financing activities with the SDGs, and this is what local governments, local authorities can do. In the long-term recovery and resilience, we can have SDG aligned sukuk, and we can have wakaf endowments. Yeah. Now, so for Islamic finance post-COVID, we need real leadership in times of crisis and beyond to correct mistakes and seize the new opportunities. And I can really feel this. I remember a discussion I have with Dr. Afifi Al-Akiti at the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies, and I say, one of the challenges, I mean, with Waqf and Zakat is that it is under state jurisdiction. And he said, well, then the state would have to come up with their initiative then. If the power lies with them, if the jurisdiction it is by the state, then I think it is, now this is my words, this is, I think, high time for the state government, the religious councils to contribute to this space by making use of the instruments that they already have. Yeah, and first to begin with a discussion, a discourse, and certainly we can learn from other people. Yeah, for example, green bonds and social impact bonds, which when I start the research in 2015, there were so few. I mean, we had the Peterborough first social impact bond, and then there's so many now. If you go to social finance website, then you can see all the cases in the world where they structure a bond, and we can structure also this Islamic social impact bonds or social sukuk to meet the financing of to finance some of the social issues that we have in our community or our at the state level. Yeah, and we can have also, of course, at the sovereign level, or why not even the state level, to connect with climate change. Yeah, green sovereign sukuk proceeds for SDGs and monetize to small denominations for retail to appreciate climate change and SDG. And we could be more affirmative, you know, if we believe in the net zero carbon initiatives. We can allocate, say, for example, 1% of GDP, and also for corporates. And this discussion, I collect some of these important issues as I discussed with Datuk Nuri Kamso, who is of course one of the leading figures in Islamic finance, and through her book, Investing in Islamic Funds, a Practitioner's Perspective, she actually wrote a very compelling argument about why the world should invest in Islamic funds. Yeah, and when she was chairman of Bank Rakyat, I think she also pushed forward the agenda for sustainability. So this is what corporates can do. They can collaborate with the international community on sustainability. They can have a 10 years, 2030, something like that plan. There's a pathway from here to net zero. Yeah, and then of course we can have social sukuk. When I started this research, I proposed something like an Iqra sukuk. Think about Hamza. You know, Hamza, for months, and I don't know, maybe for years, he doesn't go to school. but I'm surprised that he speaks English quite well. So, I was proposing a crowd to work with, say, EB. EB is an international organization that provides books for the young people. And it's interesting. And I went to visit their headquarters as well in Basel, I think. But it was not taken up. And I hope today we can revive that dream. For people who listen to this lecture, we can have something like Ikra Sukuk to raise money, because food is something urgent. You know, you don't let probably those people in the refugee camps to die of hunger. Although we hear about Yemen, this is also another case. But books, maybe you know, probably that comes lower priority. Yeah. But we need to develop the talent in these marginalized people. This is the future of humanity, yeah? And what about the problems that we have in Malaysia, you know? Youth not having jobs, you know, can we do something, raise sukuk, to provide training? And of course, sukuk has its own governance, so that as opposed to just sadaqah, there's a whole lot of benefits. And I wrote this in one of my papers, a case for an Islamic social impact bonds, because it had a whole governance about, you know, you can track, you know, where does money go, and as a form of contracting by the government. So instead of government giving money to, say, train the youth, it is a little bit of a roundabout way, but it could put the responsibility for the social providers to be more successful and efficient, because the people who would buy the social sukuk can get more dividends. So it's based on pay for success. The higher the success of meeting the KPIs, the outcome, the positive outcome that you specify in the beginning. So it's a whole, you know, like very interesting, innovative structure, which hopefully can provides a more efficient way of financing social initiatives. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about people behavioral changes. And this comes from my work with Oxford Intellect, of how we could have behavioral insights. And this could come out from behavioral economics or behavioral finance. And that is to understand behavior of real people to affect positive changes supporting sustainable consumption. And I know in people like Daud Abdullah Vikari says about, you know, the issue with Islamic finance is to do with marketing. And why is it that when we have Islamic banking, not all Muslims take it up, yeah? And in research that a few of us did, UiTM and Asian Institute of Finance at the time, when we did research on financial literacy, and we had one question about the awareness of youth with Islamic finance. It's very low awareness, and this is because I think Islamic finance community just not engaged with the young people. They don't know what Islamic finance. So when they get jobs, when they eventually want to open an account, why should they open an Islamic account? Yeah. And even then, knowing does not necessarily translate to using. Yeah, like why do doctors smoke? They know it's bad. Yeah, and so it is more sophisticated than that to understand people's behavior. We need a whole lot of theory and data, and we now have that. We can have AI, we can have data analytics, and this is like, yeah, I'm going to go into this with Oxford Intellect, which is an organization based in Oxford. And so this is very interesting. But the point is, we need a multidisciplinary, again, an integrated systems approach, a civilizational approach, so that Islamic finance should not be exclusive with the legal Sharia scholars and a couple of economists and accountants. Yeah, we need to speak with psychiatrists and discipline of psychology and economics and a whole lot of other things. There's political economy, of course, there. Yeah, to have the commitment from the government. So Islamic finance and halal, for example, sometimes these work in vacuums. I mean, halal industry talks about food and cosmetics, but do they talk about the halal financing? You know, because Islamic finance could be a lot bigger when we go and touch the real economy, and that includes halal industry. And the lifestyle changes. This is the SDG number 12 for sustainable consumption. Yeah, how do we encourage changes in lifestyle and behaviors of people to not use plastics, to eat healthy food, yeah, and at the governmental and policy level to abolish barriers so that we close the gap, the digital gap, and for technology to be democratized. I mean, you have an election using the digital voting. I mean, how would you the rural people, yeah, and so for Islamic finance now, as you know, the digital gap, like finance has to make sense to people and to the world civilization. Being a faith-based finance, it has to contribute to global repentance. That's the word I coined today. I mean, picking up from the last session. So it has to contribute to global repentance by contributing more towards sustainability and the development of a humanistic economy. And this requires the Partnership for Goals, which is the SDG number 17 of all, including new stakeholders who have been probably bystanders before this. And that includes the states, the local governments, people, the NGOs, yeah? And if I could just issue 3 takeaways. That number 1, Islamic finance needs to take an integrated systems view to contribute to civilization. Number 2, it can have transformative growth, particularly in the areas of climate change and Islamic social finance. And number 3 is to incorporate behavioral economics to support behavioral changes to then contribute to a more humanistic economy, or in Malay we call it Ekonomi Manusiawi. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Saadiah. I think what very long and very interesting presentations, and I think it is very impressive. And I think she started with a very basic introduction of this one of the most important foundation in Islamic finance by showing the first universities on this earth. Nothing that is Al-Qarawiyyin, which I think there are 2 important points that I can say for that matter of this university. That one, it was established by a woman, a Muslim woman, that is long time ago, which is very rare. Number 2, it is based on this, of course, some of your inheritance wealth that she received, but the endowment factor. And we have seen how the development of the universities, I mean, in this world, Azhar, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, all are based on this workup. And of course, she has presented quite a number of important points. But what I can say is how this Islamic finance can contribute back to the community. And she has given lots and many of examples. Of course, the zakat, the wakaf. And I think towards the end of her presentation, she stressed much more on this, how the sukuk can play this role. And I suppose that she managed to share with us in certain points that problems that we face perhaps in Malaysia, because we have these restrictions of what we perhaps we don't have in other countries like Indonesia, where there are parties that can join together. And I think there are developments and there are, if I can say, movements that we are working with, like say UNICEF, for example, working together with IAIS, for example. We have this project, and perhaps that would be something that we can contribute, how we can take this corporate zakat into consideration for the benefit of our children. I think that would be, some of the important points that I can share. Of course, the presentations by Prof. Osman Bakar and also discussion by Yang Mulia Tengku Azman last Thursday perhaps has influenced some of her points in this presentation. Of course, the world civilizational approach that we must take into account, and of course, I think Islamic finance. If you want to sustain Islamic finance, she has presented that it has to return back to the society. I think that would be some of the points that I can make a summary for her presentation. Okay, we have a few questions that we got it from our viewers on Facebook. Perhaps, okay, Prof. Saadiah. Uh, okay. I will throw you the questions. Okay, it's this it's a question and also a comment from Abu Ubaidah Kamil. What is the solution to poverty and inequality? So you talk about inequality in your, in your perhaps in the first presentations of how this inequality in several countries, be it in Malaysia, but you mentioned a bit in the Scandinavian countries like Sweden. Where not much. Where we are, Malaysia is getting okay, but still, these kind of countries they are not Muslim countries, but yet they are quite good. So, what would be the solution to poverty and equality? And she and he makes comments on this wakaf and also taxation. Wakaf economy based on people economic empowerment rather than taxation and interest base that creates inequality of wealth distribution, whereas taxation and interest cause bubble economy because interest itself is burdens to economy. The same with taxation. But that is his comment. But the questions that he posted was what is the solution to poverty and equality? Perhaps you can answer that. We have also several other questions which I think I will share with you later.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Of course, the issue of poverty and inequality is a big thing. I mean, we should have a session just solely for that. But in my presentation, I give some directions, some possibilities that Islamic finance could contribute, and I also put a critique that initially I think that not much of Islamic finance has contributed or affected to this area. Yeah. Although I'm not denouncing its contribution, because if you get jobs and people from the poor families, and now if you do Sharia or a degree in Islamic studies, previously you didn't have this industry to work, but now, so in terms of providing and creating jobs, Islamic finance has of course contributed to that, and so there are a lot of things like in Muslim countries, then there's still a lot of Muslim countries who have not ventured or who have not uplifted, give way to the operation of Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions. And so this is something we look for. Even Oman, I think, was quite only recent. Yeah. And these are Muslim majority countries. So there's a lot of things that the governments have to work at, the legal system and all that. And then, of course, when I talk about Islamic social finance, this is even more direct, because one of the criteria, in fact, that I acknowledge in the talk just now is that the Islamic social finance actually is more inclusive, and we know this. Waqf, this is actually providing the services for the poor people, yeah, or for the education and for the health. And we have seen this in the Islamic tradition. I mean, in places like Korean and even Oxford and Cambridge was actually developed following the model of Waqf, yeah. And this I personally got verified when I was in Oxford, and it's amazing that all these Western institutions actually and the colleges are endowed, yeah, by those people who have wealth. And so this is one way. If you're too poor to go to university and you have university, a Waqf university to go to, and the use of zakat, yeah. So the instruments are there already. It's just the system, the political commitment, the mobilization of talent. And sometimes we do lack talent. We do lack the know-how and how to do it. So this is a challenge, yeah. Like the quote from Oxfam, poverty is a choice, yeah. It's a choice. In other words, you're not destined, you're not poor because you are lazy, but because of the system. And so the government and I think it's not just the government. And I like the person who talk about empowerment, and this is what we would like at the Forum of Ekonomi Manusiawi. We'd like to propose that the solution lies also in the empowerment of people and the empowerment of civil society. You rely on the government, but what if the government is not effective and it's forever fighting this war? And so you need the civil society, you need liberated, empowered people to lift themselves out of poverty. But of course, you need the system to actually be able to do that.
We have a few more questions, but before we go to the questions that posted by the FB viewers, I think in relation to what you have presented and just you answered just now, I think we go back to, I mean, to Malaysia in particular. How this we have been talking about zakat, we have talking about wakaf, and yet it is not, I mean, we don't achieve what we supposed to achieve. The history have given us lessons. I mean, we talk about the successful of the Muslims in the years ago, but we are talking about Malaysia, for example. We don't go to other countries. How can we go about of this zakat and this wakaf? And I think is also in relation to this. There's one question pertaining to this view on this. I mean, what is your comments on this? The idea of forming Wakaf Bank. So that would be something where maybe that can take care of the needy and to ensure the fair and equitable distribution of wealth and happiness. So that would be something I think that perhaps you can share with us.
I know, and I have been involved also with some of the Waqf initiatives, and a lot of people are frustrated. But I like to be hopeful. I like to be positive in this. The thing is to create awareness, the way of knowing, make a lot of people know and realize the potential of Waqf and zakat. And I say, as I said, and I see this that there has not been intermingling of for example, the state authorities, or less rather. So we need to have that. We need to have a community that have a commitment, and now and we need to be humble enough to admit that nowadays we do not own total jurisdiction of anything. Yeah, we need to share that, and this is good, and I think SDG number 17, partnership for goals, is very important, and this is very much Islamic in nature. We have to rely on others, musyawarah, a partnership, and we have the shura in our tradition to discuss, and of course the opening of minds and to learn from others. It's possible that we may have certain expertise, but we don't have the the other things. Yeah. So by working together, so I would like to appeal to all, so that we could cooperate, and it is by being more open to new solutions that we can probably break some of the long existing problems that we have, and the empowerment of people, and also when you allow other people to share maybe some of your powers, this is not a bad thing. This can bring the nation and community into civilization. And I'm hopeful because recently I've done an initiative. Of course, I was not able because I was busy at the university, but recently I had more time, and therefore I had an initiative selling pre-love things and bringing in at the community level, a young entrepreneur and the business, the developer there, and I think if we get the vibes, of working together, of partnering, inshallah, we can solve many issues.
Okay, thank you. I think, I mean, questions that you have answered, I think, points also, I think there are certain questions, in particular from Ali Sheikh Abdul Qadir, with regard to this Zakat institution as a catalyst for growth. And I think in Malaysia, because we are confined to respective states, so Zakat, Wakaf, the matters under respective states. And we, I mean, with this COVID-19 pandemic, I think more people are losing their jobs. More people will going to the respective Zakat center, be it LZS, be it PPZ, and other states. And the Zakat fund now is coming to zero. And somehow, sometimes it is negative because the demand, the people that seeking for Zakat is now getting, the numbers are increasing, and yet the fund is remain. So despite you can see in numbers every year it grows. So perhaps I think the question by Ali Sheikh Abdul Qadir, how do we empower more Zakat institution as a catalyst for growth? It would be a very good one.
And there's a lot of research papers, a lot of conferences and workshops on this. And so this is again a partnership of those zakat institutions with universities, with scholars and researchers, and they have bright solutions. And I know people who are working on this. So I think, inshallah, if there is a will, there is a way. Yeah. The problem, I think, is sometimes the inertia, the reluctance to kind of share your powers. Because when you open, you probably lose some of the powers that you have. And I think this is something that we as a society need to look at that. We are ready to admit that our knowledge, our organization may be limited, and a lot more can be achieved if we work together. And also to gain from, I think even as long as Dr. Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qadawi has done his PhD thesis was on zakat, and now we should be inspired by Indonesia, with Basnas partnering with UNDP and doing some of the wonderful work there. So yeah, state governments. And this is not just religious council. This is also, we have state governments with ESCOs handling the religion and hal ehwal adat ke apa ya. So state levels, they also have their jurisdictions. They have also the sections, the departments that handle this, and we could think of innovative ways. Yeah. Just like it's I don't know if it's positive or sad, but a lot of people want to do something like waqf, but there are kind of taken back because when you use the word wakaf, you have to get the approval from the State Religious Council. Yeah, and so sometimes people try to circumvent that by registering in Labuan offshore. But in the end, if you want, you still have to be a mutawali. You still have to have that status. But I don't know. There are other ways you don't have to call it that because even in the Quran, I was made to understand that there's no really the word waqf, but in sadaqah. So inshallah, we can appeal to our intellect, our minds, so that we can put the potential of zakat and waqaf better. I think this is also a call for the scholars among us.
Okay, thank you. I think it reminds me to this Caliph of Umar Abdul Aziz during his period of ruling, where people, I mean, we are talking about not only Muslims, we are talking about, I mean, Muslims in particular, where there were none, no case at all. I mean, people, even a single Muslim seeking zakat for that matter. I think that would be something. I think I think there are researchers that have studied how this Caliph Umar Abdul Aziz success in that. I think that would be something. I mean, there is a question by Datuk Noripah Kamso. You mentioned many times in connecting the sustainability culture into the integration of Islamic social finance. Yeah. However, I might have missed you mentioning about the circular economy, circular economy, and that is cradle to cradle. For example, recycling and reuse of plastics, for example. So, what is your take in this circular economy, as one of the solution to meeting the social finance agenda?
Thank you very much, Datuk, for your question. I think I did mention one instead about circular economy, but did not really explain it. And there's also the donut economy, but the circular economy, yes, specifically relates to reducing waste and also the importance of recycling, which I know that you are very passionate about that. And the question is how do we encourage people to be more aware? And I still feel that compared to other countries, I mean, when I was a student in the US, that was like in the mid 80s. No, 90s. There was already, recycling bins at our houses. I mean, here now in Malaysia, and this is Shah Alam. Okay, that's the recycling truck that came, but we don't have recycling bins. Yeah, we just like, I think something so simple to do that. And so it's commitment from local authorities, a commitment from the politicians. Yeah, but then of course, sometimes when I raise it and people say, oh, even if we give, the people won't do it. They would put all kinds of things into that. But that means you don't trust the people. I mean, start first with where, in cities where people are addicted. And of course, this is a vicious cycle. If you don't trust the people, you don't have that expectation, then people, you can never get the result. Yeah. So it's both. It's a vicious cycle. But then again, when we're talking about Islamic finance, so how would Islamic finance contribute to this? And you have so the corporates, the business people, we can relate it to ESG, yeah, Islamic investing in with the Islamic funds investing into the ESG, and as consumers also, we want to question the Islamic banks, how much is their contribution into promoting sustainability. And they should go more into the sustainability report. What is the contribution to that? Yeah, so very much I agree that this has got to be ventured into, where Islamic finance need to be promoting some of these very important notions of sustainability, including recycling and behavioral economics. We need to go into that to understand why is it that people are not recycling enough, or even why is it that the local governments are not putting a lot more commitment into this recycling. That is behavioral as well, I think.
Maybe I'm not representing the state government. For example, state government of Selangor. I think the local councils, I think they have made quite a number of improvements. And I think they have also, introduced quite a number of the practical practice. I think maybe Bukit Jelutong, where you are now living, perhaps they don't provide the MBSA, they don't provide this recycle bin, which I think when I was in London, that was 15, 20 years back. It was a practice. But I think when we were small, I suppose that was long time ago. We don't have this recycle bin system, but we do have this person coming from one house to another. At the village, we are talking about kampong, looking for empty bottles, and they got one bottle for 10 cents those days. So that caught a number. I think we do have these people coming to our doorstep, but I think the local councils, in fact, have if made such, the practical approach for this. I think when people, grumble because of, oh, we need to pay 20 cents for plastic bags. But I think now people are aware where we bring our own bag for shopping. I think that will be a good thing. I think awareness and people will change. But I think education will be one of the important. I think perhaps that will be the case. I think we are almost coming to the end, but I would like to take these two questions before we end. These questions come from the Philippines. Sharifah Makarandas. I think maybe you may answer or you may not, because this is very, I don't say it's a tricky question, but we just talk about zakat. Do you have a fund zakat which we can borrow for capital to invest here in Philippines and then pay it back again?
A very good question to indicate that there could be needs outside your jurisdiction. Yeah. And this is again, sometimes we feel that we're very much governed by the policies and the laws. With individual philanthropy, we are a lot more free to give whatever, and in times we have humanitarian groups here like Mercy and Global Peace Mission, and that there's a lot of humanitarian relief work abroad. But this is again a question interesting, because I don't know if we have, do you, Dr. Azam, that our zakat money cannot go across country? Yeah, I'm not sure, and I better not say that. But not that I know of. Usually the asnafs are in the people who are defined clearly by the zakat institutions. But I think there is a need for that, and especially rich states. You could have, because we are a global village now. We could have funds that can be given as part of this that is raised by Sharifah just now, and also we could think about, say, non-Muslim majority countries where they are less governed by the laws. Yeah, they're more freedom to actually decide on that. And so Muslim communities in these non-Muslim majority countries like UK or elsewhere, perhaps they could have that, and they could have a social sukuk coming from, supported by the zakat. Yeah, a lot of things can be done, but again, don't be put off by the inertia and the hindrances. Think about what can be done. Pick the low-hanging fruits. Yeah, like in your community, we can start little things to help. And of course, in this day and age where we can connect with other people in the ummah, the community of the ummah, and also the global community, we are not alone. Yeah, we could look at the solutions that's been done in other communities. It's just important that we remain positive and hopeful.
Thank you. Maybe I can add a bit on that. I think as far as I'm concerned, of course, we talk about the zakat institutions in Malaysia, which are confined at the respective states because of the background of the legal that we have. But I think somehow the religious councils, they managed to go beyond of these restrictions. They set up some of what we call it foundations under this. So some of the zakat contributions or portions. They name it under foundation, and they help those who are in need outside of that, beyond of that states. And perhaps I think that mechanism can go beyond of the country. I think they are, we call it one. We call it, if I may share, all the zakat centers or zakat institution at respective states, they do on regular basis have meeting where they have this, somehow they call it muzakara or what they call it. There is a council of it among the zakat institutions. But perhaps the questions by the Philippines, I suppose, at the moment, I don't think that we have that capacity, but I believe that we can go and break the traditions of what we are practicing right now, taking into the experience by some of the zakat institutions and zakat center in Malaysia where they set up this foundation. So before we end, I think I would like to entertain this one last question. Still, the subject matter is about what we call it, this wakaf, wakaf. Somehow, yes. Okay. Okay. Somehow, I think sometimes the structure of the manager of the funds leads to the lack of contributors. How do we solve this? Higher institutions we are talking about in Malaysia, for example, hardly get any wakaf fund, not like Oxford or other Western universities. How to inspire contributors? But I think before I pass it to you, I think maybe there is some information which I think we can get. I think one of the public universities in Malaysia, like UiTM, during one of the VCs, if I may name, is Prof. Zaini Ujang, when he was a VC, Vice Chancellor of UiTM. So he has set up this endowment fund, which I think has it is a very successful project, and I think it can take care of the fees of the students, can take care of the fees of students from that endowment. Perhaps that would be something that Prof. Saadiah can share.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Ali. This is very true, in fact, and this is the challenge. I mean, now that people think, oh, okay, we can go into waqf and do waqf funds, and so we have so many. I mean, like every day, no short of people asking for funds, right? Okay, two things. One is we must have the tools. People do degrees on fundraising. Do Islamic organizations have the tools, the know-how, the knowledge on how to make people provide charitable giving? It has to be a culture. Yeah. And we're just starting about waqf in probably in the last 10 years. Yeah. And in
places like Oxford and Cambridge, this is a tradition, and even then, it's not maybe the overall public. This is among those who are rich and educated. But now, I think one of the prime ministers in UK admitted that Muslims contributed a lot to charity giving in the UK. And I remember one Ramadan, I attended a fundraising, and they do it so well. I mean, it's like, move your emotions, yeah. And so this is again one thing that we need to do, how to do it better. And there are ways now with blockchain technology, and when zakat or waqf institutions, when they raise funding, if they can show to the donors what happens to their funds that they contributed or they give charity to, what happens to it? Can you trace it? And so with blockchain technology, you can actually do this, yeah, to provide more trust, yeah, because if I have, say, 1 million, I want to give to waqf. I want to know and make sure that the money that I give actually, if let's say I want to have that for education, I want to see that it actually goes there, that it's not being misused. So if you can provide that impact measurement, kind of measurement, and the communication to your donors, then you would have more possibilities of raising more funds. And I just, it's interesting that I probably get your permission to, we are organizing the forum, and the Oxford Intellect is organizing a session with an expert on charitable giving. Yeah, on charitable giving, or what's the date? In November. Yeah. So this will give you the tools of how to effectively increase charitable giving. So my point is that you have to have the knowledge of how to do it. And sometimes it's called marketing. Yeah. Yes. And sometimes it's the whole understanding of people's behavior.
Thank you. I hope that answer satisfied Ali Sheikh Abdul Qadir. And we have the last question for this session. This question is from Abu Ubaidah Kamin. Zakat funds should be invested in order to enlarge the size of funds, particularly in short-term investment. That will result in more people get the empowerment. Can you comment?
I am probably not the best person to answer this, because, of course, zakat is also bound to the hukum and the fatwas. Yeah, of course, fatwas, and just like being illustrated in Islamic finance and the innovations provided by MUIS, for example, yeah. And of course, Sharia is something dynamic that it can answer to the context and the present conditions. So yes, we would like to appeal to those zakat institutions, those people who are empowered with the authority for the zakat funds. Clearly, I mean, say in the case of waqf, this is how it so in the Islamic tradition itself, there is the issue of sustainability, isn't it? Waqf is that you can spend the dividends, but if you do cash waqf, that principle should not be spent. Yeah, so that would ensure the sustainability of that. But with zakat, it's slightly different. Yeah, because you're supposed to distribute it. Yeah, but of course, I am sure there are solutions to this, and people, and I'm not the best person. I not in there to exactly talk about zakat, but it certainly is promising to actually pose this question to those people who have the power to actually, can we do something to this? Can we have those who can give the fatwa to probably better use. In fact, the asnaf, for example, the definition of asnaf, how can this be put in context of what we have now? right? And how to give the rod rather than the fish, yeah, to actually make that more sustainable. And I think this is already being done, and that means it is doable. Like, we have zakat assistance program where it is being given to entrepreneurs, for example. So I'd like to put also my last point is that when I all the points that I raise here is not, it's not to denounce the contribution, and it's not to say that sometimes because you don't know, you say that people are not doing. And I'm sure people, there are prominent and able and sincere people already at the zakat institutions, at the waqf institutions, a lot of scholars and researchers and the practitioners who are very committed and sincere about this. And so we hope, we pray to Allah that Allah gives us tawfiq and hidayah, and also the energy, the passion to better use the funds that we have, and to collect more funds to be able to channel this into good deeds, yeah, into one that can provide is for a civilizational economic development. So it's not just for higher growth and just for us to eat, but to build a civilization.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Saadiah. I think just to add a bit, I think as far as the zakat institution is concerned, I think in Malaysia, I think for the short-term investment, I think I'm not aware of it. It's not my niche area, but I do have some knowledge about it. But I think having some of these entrepreneurs that got from this zakat fund, the idea is for them to remove them from this poverty where they receive the zakat, and being entrepreneurs, they contribute back where they give the zakat to that institution. But I do believe institutions of zakat institutions in Malaysia is subject to the rules, regulations, the law. But I think the fatwa institutions at large also contributed a lot. And I give you examples of this PPZ and also the Religious Council of the Federal Territories in particular, because the zakat institutions are subject under this council. And they have quite a number of, if I can say, embark into business. In the long term is to give back to those who need the zakat. I think, for example, in Kuala Lumpur, in Wilayah, if you might know, we have this Pusrawi, the medical center, which is belong to this Wilayah Persekutuan Majlis Agama Islam Persekutuan Mawid, as well as hotels. And we talk about wakaf hotels. I think there are quite a number of wakaf hotels developed in this country, despite we have these challenges of this confinement of these legal matters with regard to Islamic matters. We do have some this, what we call it, this wakaf hotel. And I think we do also have private universities, which is also based on wakaf, but we cannot have only one or two. We need to have more. And I think we will, on behalf of IAIS Malaysia, we would like to thank again Prof. Saadiah for spending her time this afternoon to share with us on a very interesting and provoking subject matter on sense and sensibility Islamic finance for a more humanistic economy. And I think the presentation was successful, and the questions also are very, very good. And perhaps we hope that you satisfied with the answer. Till then, we meet again in the next programs, events organized by IAIS, and also some organizers that collaborate with us. We would like to thank you for sharing with us, watching our program today. Inshallah, we meet you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon.